Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And of course, here recently in the last few weeks, we've been talking and seeing on national news and social media about the LA, California wildfires. And of course, we know that they take place almost every year, but this one in particular had way more devastating results because of some fumbling by local and statewide politicians. And as you all know, I talk about it all the time. Everybody's so worried about our presidential election that sometimes we fail to realize who we have and have voted for in our city and our state politics. Knowing how they are creating policy and legislation for our rights, whether it's your mayor all the way to your state governor. We need to know how our state senators and our city legislators and our state legislators are putting laws into effect and how they are legislating your city and your state. Those kinds of issues affect you immediately and are right in your face. Your city administrators, your city politicians, and we have to make and hold them accountable for their actions, making sure they're at work every day, not traveling all over the world. Being the mayor or the governor is a full-time 365-day-a-year job. If you don't want to work those kinds of hours, you should not run for office. And you're seeing unfortunately, you're seeing in some of these blue cities and blue states that have these African American mayors, they have been in a lot of turmoil in three of our largest cities. Brandon Johnson in Chicago. There's all kind of chaos and disruption. Eric Adams, who's been indicted. There's all kinds of chaos and disruption in New York. And now we have LA's first term mayor, Karen Bass, who is in a heap of turmoil because when these wildfires started a few weeks ago, she was on a trip to Ghana. Why in the world would the mayor of LA be in Ghana? It makes no sense. And as a result, while she was gone and when she got back, half of LA was burning down. So let's get into the controversy over this first term mayor, African-American woman, Karen Bass, and with these issues that are taking place in these blue cities like LA, Chicago, and New York, where you have bail reform, these liberal laws, cashless bail systems in LA, the Safety Act in the state of Illinois, where you can commit minor infractions and not go to jail. These cities are falling apart one day at a time. And it makes you question this whole DEI scenario, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Are we voting the right people into office, not based on their color, but based on their resume and their qualifications for the job? So here's the controversy with LA Mayor Karen Bass, who faces critical leadership test as questions emerge about wildfire response. A few weeks ago, as hurricane strength winds blew through bone-dry hillside subdivisions, Los Angeles saw its worst nightmare realized, as long-predicted firestorms engulfed wide swaths of the nation's second-largest city. For Mayor Karen Bass, the horror show was compounded by every chief executive's worst nightmare. She was halfway around the globe on a trip to Ghana as part of a presidential delegation. And she's not a president, she's a mayor. As her city faced its greatest crisis in decades, the first-term mayor confronted a critical test of her leadership 2 years after taking office. After rushing home To help manage the city's response, she pushed back against a loud chorus of critics from near and far. She said LA has to be strong and united, Bass said in a press conference. We will reject those who seek to divide us and seek to misinform. Mayor Bass eventually made it back to Los Angeles by military transport, but only after more than a 24-hour absence, during which critics assailed her for not being better prepared. More than 5,000 homes burned as fire hydrants ran dry because water demand was so high it drained the city's reserve tanks. Governor Gavin Newsom ordered an investigation on Friday into the city's Department of Water and Power over the loss of water pressure. An online petition demanding Mayor Bass' resignation garnered 33,000 signatures. We have got a mayor that is out of the country, and we have got a city that is burning, said Rick Caruso, a developer who ran against Mayor Bass in the 2022 mayoral race. On local television Tuesday night, he said, adding that 2 of his children's houses were destroyed. It looks like we're in a third world country here. Elon Musk called the mayor utterly incompetent in a post on his social media site X, leading a charge of conservatives slamming Mayor Bass for a cut to the city fire department's budget in July, even though it was later boosted with additional money, and officials say it now has more funding than last year. Some conservatives also claim that the shortcomings of the response were connected to a focus on diversity at the agency, not who should be well qualified, but what they look like. A low-key longtime legislator and coalition builder, Mayor Bass, a 71-year-old Democrat, is now caught between fires threatening her city and the white hotspot trained on an executive struggling to get a spiraling natural disaster under control. She will be defined by this crisis, said Fernando Guerrera, founder of the Center for the Study of Los Angeles at Loyola Marymount University. She needs to be very proactive for the sake of her not for the sake of her political career, but for the sake of the city. The fires were not just caused by Los Angeles policies or flaws in its response, and it's not just the city staring down the devastation. One of the worst blazes has raced through communities entirely outside city limits, showing how dry brush, steep hillsides, high winds, and dense neighborhoods can be a lethal combination, regardless of the local response. Experts for decades have warned about the risk of building and living in hillside neighborhoods like Pacific Palisades, the wealthy Los Angeles neighborhood that was largely incinerated in one of the blazes. Los Angeles officials have not been targeted with such intense criticism. Mayor Bass became more forceful after a series of initial stumbles after returning from Ghana, where she was part of an official White House delegation to the inauguration of that country's president. Bass was silent while intercepted on camera by a reporter at the airport, asking why she'd been gone and if she had any regrets. At an earlier press conference, she read haughtily from prepared remarks, directing people to URL to find information online. The mayor left for Africa on January the 4th, a day after the National Weather Service issued a fire weather watch for Los Angeles. She left the day after that, flagging critical fire conditions. So there were warnings. The day after she left, those watches were upgraded to warnings, and on Monday, the service warned that a particularly dangerous situation was taking shape. So this was all taking place and she still decides to go to Ghana. For what? Mayor Bass on Thursday said it was too soon to respond to critics. When the fires are out, we will do a deep dive, she said. We will look at what worked, we will look at what didn't work, and we will let you know. Christian Gross, a political scientist at the University of Southern California, noted that Mayor Bass' specialty has long been building legislative consensus behind closed doors rather than the sort of take-charge public posture required for big city mayors in times of crisis. This moment demands a true executive who will stand up and say, "This is what we're going to do," Gross said of the new mayor. Guerrero said this makes Bass a good fit for the city where the city has limited direct power, which is instead diffused among the city council, a web of boards and quasi-independent agencies, the broader county and neighboring city governments. Mayor Bass is also better fit for Los Angeles voters who prefer her style to that of incoming President Donald Trump and other critics, Guerrero said. For those who see leadership as a white male making statements not based on fact, she will never convince them, Guerrero said. But for Los Angeles who see leadership as a collaborative, multicultural effort, she can. National Democrats, including President Biden, began to rally around Mayor Bass last Friday. "I know you're getting a bad rap," the president said to the mayor during an Oval Office meeting with Mayor Bass appearing virtually. "This is complicated stuff, and you're going to have a lot of demagogues out there trying to take advantage of it." Michael Trujillo, a Los Angeles Democratic strategist, dismissed the immediate criticism about Mayor Bass. "The test isn't whether she was here for the fire or not," he said. "The test is going to be rebuilding. The pressure will be immense. Pacific Palisades and the adjoining community of Malibu, which is outside city limits, but also suffered severe damage, is home to some of the wealthiest people on the planet," Trujillo noted. "They have no patience for a slow reconstruction," he said. The explosion of wildfires forced Mayor Bass to immediately pivot from what had been an all-consuming priority of her brief time in office, getting control of the city's long-running homeless crisis. So she was more concerned about that than the water reserve and the possibility of a fire devastation. And they spent over $18 million, supposedly, or several $1 million for this homeless situation, or $1 billion, and they haven't done anything with that homeless crisis at all. The vast demands of rebuilding will shuffle those priorities and limit construction resources. This is basically her entire mayoral legacy, Trujillo said. Fire Chief Christian Crowley wrote a memo last month pleading for more funds and complaining a separate $7 million reduction in overtime funds could hamper response to fires. So these people need more money for overtime to restore LA County. Since the blazes erupted, she has stressed they would have done catastrophic damage regardless of the budget that the blazes would have. But when asked in an interview if City Hall had failed the department, the chief answered yes without ever mentioning the mayor. City Hall is the mayor's domain. "It's my job to stand up as chief and exactly say what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community," Crowley told Fox 11 in Los Angeles. For decades, scientists have warned that the Los Angeles era is due for a catastrophic devastation from wildfires. Blazes are part of life in Southern California, but few have ever ripped into the heart of the city like this one. Guerrero, who has been active in Los Angeles civic life since the 1980s, said the city is actually lucky. He said, given what happened, I think that local government has been incredibly responsive. Guerrero said, LA from 20 years ago would have not been able to manage this. So here's a clear example. We have to know who we are voting into office, and we have to know what is the leadership, the maturity, the responsibility, and what is their mission. How do you go on a trip to Ghana a day before or a day after the warning signs that potential devastating wildfires were fastly approaching LA County? How do you do that? What is your priority? What are you prioritizing? Your trips, going on trips on the taxpayer dollars, or taking care of the taxpayers of your city and being the leader as the mayor of your city, let alone Gavin Newsom, the governor. They have dropped the ball 1,000% in the state of California. The state of California, not only LA, with homelessness, the opioid crisis, joblessness, hopelessness, gun violence, has been decimated and looks like a third world country. The entire state, from Southern California to Northern California. Oakland is being decimated with personal property damage, assaults, high crime rates. In-N-Out Burger has left Oakland. San Francisco has been decimated with homelessness, with shoplifting and looting. It is wiping an entire chasm across the entire state. That has been going on for years. And now you have Mother Nature waking up the citizens of the United States of America, and specifically LA County, and showing that now we have a terrible wildfire situation. Now, you had in North Carolina several months ago, the Hurricane Helene that devastated parts of North Carolina and other surrounding states. And now you have this situation, this multi-billion-dollar devastation in LA with these wildfires. And where is FEMA? I'm going to do a story about FEMA soon. There's been all kinds of controversy about FEMA and what they actually do and don't do. And we have to see how that plays out as another alphabet governmental agency that's supposed to come in and help the citizens, the taxpaying citizens in the United States. It's always amazing to me when we have these terrible devastations that you start seeing commercials of U.S. citizens that have been devastated by natural disasters, and then they want the citizens, the other citizens of the United States, to pay for it with donations. Our U.S. government prints money each and every day. During the pandemic, they pushed a button and influxed $3 trillion into the marketplace. We print money all day long. We're helping finance the Russia-Ukraine war. We're financing the Hamas situation in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. But it's always very interesting to me that we cannot find the money, the government cannot find the money to take care of its citizens right in its own backyard. So let's see what our U.S. government does in this particular situation, because they have definitely dropped the ball with Hurricane Helene that took place in North Carolina off those shores off the East Coast. We have these two devastations that have happened within the last 6 months. And where is FEMA, and where is our federal government that needs to come in and give us some kind of restoration financially, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, to help the U.S. citizens? This is a very sad commentary, and I think Mayor Karen Bass dropped the ball along with Governor Gavin Newsom. Tell me what you think about these devastating LA fires. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.